Open up a
We're gonna be reacting to new why the world suddenly has too many ships.
From the Strait of Malacca to the English Channel, the seas are
Let's
currently
fucking
hosting the
go.
largest commercial army of ships in human history. Just a few years ago, the global economy was begging for vessel space. Retailers were chartering their own private bulk carriers just to get inventory across the Pacific, and the cost of shipping a single steel box skyrocketed by 1,000%. Fast forward to today, and the maritime industry is facing a massive
Inflation, am I right? What are you talking about? 4%, bro. It's 1,000%.
Fleet is expanding at a
1,000.
breakneck pace, with shipyards in China and South Korea working continuously to launch vessels that were ordered during a temporary panic.
But then look how quickly they build their ships in China, though. I'm assuming that was in China. I don't know where the heck that was.
Roughly 90% of all globally traded goods travel by sea.
LNG powered.
The premise of modern maritime logistics is built on a single, ruthless economic principle: economies of scale. For decades, ocean carriers realized that the easiest way to drop the cost per unit, per container, or TEU, was simply to build bigger boats. It takes roughly the same number of crew members to operate a ship carrying 5,000 TEUs as it does to operate a behemoth carrying 24,000 TEUs. Fuel costs increase, but not linearly compared to the payload. This relentless pursuit of efficiency gave birth to the mega.
Oh, I don't know who that is.
However, these massive vessels
Friggin' blocking the Suez Canal.
Philosophy that dominates global manufacturing, just-in-time supply chains. In a perfectly tuned just-in-time system, warehouses are practically obsolete. The ships themselves act as floating inventory, arriving at automated ports exactly when a factory needs raw components or a retailer needs seasonal stock. This system is incredibly efficient, stripping overhead costs to the absolute bone. But it is also exceptionally fragile. Just-in-time supply chains assumes perfect weather, perfect port operations, and perfect geopolitical stability. When the system functions smoothly, the exact right number of ships are deployed to meet demand. But when the system breaks, the resulting shock waves create a phenomenon known as the bullwhip effect, and this effect is the primary culprit behind today's vessel surplus. To understand why shipyards are currently launching record numbers of vessels, we have to look back at the chaos of the pandemic. When global lockdowns began, consumers stopped spending on services, vacations, restaurants, concerts, and diverted trillions of dollars into physical goods. Suddenly, everyone needed home office equipment, exercise bikes, electronics, and home improvement supplies. This historic spike in demand slammed into a logistics network that was entirely unprepared. Ports became severely congested. Because of localized lockdowns and labor shortages, ships were waiting weeks just to drop anchor outside of Los Angeles, Long Beach, and Rotterdam. Here is where the bullwhip effect took hold. In supply chain economics, the bullwhip effect describes how small fluctuations in consumer demand in economics. Here is where the
Record numbers of cargo ships are anchored off the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach, with queues reaching 65 to 92 vessels simultaneously, more than 5 times pre-pandemic levels. This congestion was driven by a surge in US consumer demand for goods and labor shortages among dock workers and truckers, which slowed cargo processing.
bullwhip effect took hold. In supply chain economics, the bullwhip effect describes how small fluctuations in consumer demand cause progressively larger fluctuations further up the supply chain. The distributor sees a massive spike from multiple retailers and orders 50 extra from the manufacturer. The manufacturer demands raw materials for 100 monitors and books double the usual shipping capacity to ensure delivery. Because ships were stuck in port traffic jams, they weren't sailing back to Asia to pick up empty containers. This created an artificial scarcity of both ships and boxes. Shippers panicked. To guarantee their cargo would move, they double or triple book space on multiple vessels. Ocean carriers
You're a little greedy.
saw what looked like
Greedy.
unquenchable demand.
They
Consequently,
book double or
freight rates
triple the
went vertical.
space
A
needed.
container that used to cost $1,500 to ship from Shanghai to Los Angeles suddenly costs $10,000 to $12,000. In this brief window, ocean carriers made historic, eye-watering profits. In fact, the major shipping cartels made more profit in a 2-year span than they had in the previous 2 decades combined. They were suddenly flush with unprecedented mountains of cash. And in the shipping industry, when you have excess cash, there's really only one thing you do with it. Armed with pandemic windfalls,
What, you
ocean
buy more
carriers
ships?
went on a historic shopping spree. They placed orders for hundreds of new vessels, focusing
Oh,
heavily on
yes, you do.
ultra-large container vessels capable of carrying upwards of 24,000 TEUs, as well as a massive fleet of Neo-Panamax ships. However, ships aren't built overnight. From the moment a contract is signed to the moment a bottle of champagne shatters against the hull, it takes roughly 2 to 3 years. By the first quarter of 2026, the global ship order book hit a 17-year high, reaching a staggering 191 million compensated gross tons equivalent, to 17% of the entire existing global fleet.
Holy crap, bro. That's their freaking building. How many ships they got building over here? They got all the raw materials or whatever the heck this stuff is. They got all the freaking warehouses. Jesus Christ. They got the little ships, the big ships.
Existing global fleet. For container ships specifically, the order book to fleet ratio sits at an alarming 37%. This means that while the world was returning to normal, consumer demand for physical goods was cooling off, and port congestion was unwinding, the shipyards in China and South Korea were building the largest influx of maritime capacity in history. Between 2024 and 2026, an estimated 7 million TEUs
Just like the
of
government,
additional
too
capacity
little, too late, not
delivered
soon
to the
enough.
global market. In 2026 alone, another 1.7 million TEUs are hitting the water, with nearly 3 million more scheduled for 2027. We are currently witnessing a tidal wave of steel entering a market that no longer requires it. So what happens when a massive influx of new capacity meets cooling global demand? You get a structural down cycle. Currently, the supply-demand ratio on main east-west trade routes shows a capacity surplus of more than 10%. In the highly leveraged world of maritime shipping, even a 4 or 5% surplus is usually enough to trigger a brutal price war and drive freight rates down to break-even levels. By the laws of supply and demand, the massive overcapacity we have today should have completely crashed the freight market. But if you look at current spot rates, they're not quite at rock bottom. The market is currently being artificially supported by geopolitical friction, specifically the crisis in the Red Sea. Because of attacks in the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, virtually all major container lines have rerouted their fleets away from the Suez Canal, forcing them to sail around the Cape of Good Hope in Africa. This diversion adds roughly 3,500 nautical miles and 10 to 14 extra days to a voyage from Asia to Europe. By forcing ships to take the long way around, the industry is effectively absorbing about 9% of global fleet capacity. The Red Sea crisis is acting as a massive sponge, soaking up the excess ships that were ordered during the pandemic. Furthermore, carriers are actively engaging in capacity management, a strategy known as blank sailings, where they simply cancel a scheduled voyage to artificially restrict supply and keep freight rates from collapsing entirely. Normally, in a market this oversupplied,
What the heck, man? You're allowed to do all that?
Older, less efficient 20-year-old
I know you're allowed to
vessels
manipulate the
in
markets.
South Asia to be broken down for steel. Yet scrapping activity has practically ground to a halt. Carriers are terrified of letting go of tonnage. The pandemic taught them that having surplus ships is the ultimate insurance policy against sudden black swan events, strikes, or canal closures. Looking ahead through 2026 and into 2027, the global container shipping market is firmly locked into a prolonged structural down cycle. The math is unavoidable. Fleet growth is consistent.
I can't wait until the pricing wars come to a different industry that isn't the shipping industry. I can't wait till the price wars come to the food industry. I want the price wars to start. I want them to war each other out of the prices. Who's the lowest? Come on, who's the lowest? Sell everything for $1. Sell everything for $1.
TEUs of capacity back into the market. This sudden injection of efficiency would strip away the artificial buffer, likely causing freight rates to plummet as carriers scramble to fill their massive new ships. Second is the green transition. Despite having too many ships, carriers will likely continue ordering new ones. Why? Environmental regulations. The International Maritime Organization, IMO, is aggressively tightening emissions rules.
I want McDonald's food to be $1 again, goddammit. It's not good, but it's good for the economy. I want fuel to be $1 again. That'd be very nice. I want porridge to be $1. It's very good for the economy.
But because it needs greener space. Third is market share warfare. The major shipping alliances are currently sitting on massive post-pandemic cash reserves. In previous down cycles, carriers would bleed money and go bankrupt, as we saw with Hanjin Shipping in 2016. Today, the big players have enough liquidity to sustain below break-even rates for years. We may see a brutal war of attrition, where carriers deliberately run their megaships at a loss just to protect their market share and wait out their competitors. The ships launching from Asian shipyards today are physical monuments to the panic of 2021. For consumers and importers, this oversupply...
Goddamn, so I guess that's what happens when a price war happens. They run their stuff at a loss and see the biggest company that can offer the most value. We like value, don't we? We like value.
Generally good news. It means lower transportation costs and more resilient supply chains. But for the ocean carriers, the next few years will be a masterclass in survival, as they try to keep their massive new fleets busy in an ocean that simply has too many ships. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.
This video is going to be linked in the comments. It's posted by Neon. I don't know what the heck that is.